My name is Megan Ross, and I am 28 years old. For the last 3 years, my Fridays have started exactly the same way. At 8 a.m. sharp, I open my banking app and transfer $600 to my parents. It isn't a gift. It is what they call medical support for my father's heart condition. At least that is the lie I have swallowed every single week. I sit in my apartment wrapped in a blanket because I keep the heat low to save money eating toast that went stale 2 days ago. My finger hovers over the transfer button, my heart racing with a familiar sickly dread. If I am late, if I miss a beat, my father might have an episode. That is what my mother says. So I press send. Payment complete. Another week of my life sold for their comfort. Drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. I would love to know who is part of our community. Also, have you ever starved yourself to feed a family that would not even look at you? 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It wasn't a thank you text from my parents. They never thanked me. It was a notification from Instagram. My brother Julian was live. I clicked on it, confused. Julian was standing in the middle of a luxury car dealership, a bottle of champagne in his hand, popping the cork with a theatrical flourish. And there, right beside him, were my parents. My father, the man with the supposedly fragile heart, was laughing louder than anyone clapping Julian on the back. My mother was beaming, looking healthier and happier than I had seen her in years. "To my boy," my father shouted over the music. "We emptied the savings, even the medical fund, for this month, but it was worth it. You deserve this ride, son." The world stopped. The cold in my apartment seemed to seep right into my bones. The medical fund, my money. The $600 I had just sent, terrified it was a matter of life and death, was now a down payment on a sports car for my unemployed brother. I stared at the screen, watching the champagne foam spill onto the polished floor. The sound of their laughter felt like a physical blow. It wasn't just theft. It was something far worse. It was total, absolute contempt. For years, I had convinced myself that this was normal, that being the responsible one meant carrying the burden. I told myself that their constant demands were just how families worked. It is a trap, you know, the trap of normalization. You start to believe that love is transactional, that if you pay enough sacrifice, enough bleed enough, eventually they will love you back. You normalize the cruelty until you don't even recognize it as abuse anymore. You just call it duty. But watching Julian pose on the hood of that car, something inside me finally snapped. It was not a loud, dramatic break. It was quiet. It was the sound of a contract being voided. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even call them to ask why. The time for questions was over. This was a business transaction now, and they had just violated the terms. I closed the live stream and opened my banking app again. My hands were steady, cold, precise. I found the recurring transfer scheduled for next Friday. Cancel. Then I went to the insurance portal. I had been paying for their premium health coverage for years. I downgraded it to the absolute legal minimum. Finally, I opened our family group chat. I typed one message: "Congratulations on the new car, Julian. Hope it runs smoother than Dad's pacemaker." Then I turned off my phone. I sat there in the silence, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel fear. I felt clarity. The guilt that had ruled my life for so long simply evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. They thought I was their safety net. They thought I was their ATM. They were about to find out what happens when the machine stops dispensing cash. This wasn't revenge. It was a correction, a necessary adjustment to the ledger. And I was just getting started. I needed to understand the full scope of what had been taken from me. I walked over to my desk and pulled out a battered notebook from the bottom drawer. I called it my notebook of shame. It was a physical record of every single dollar I had given them over the last 3 years. I started flipping through the pages, my finger tracing the entries. $500 for roof repairs that I never saw a receipt for. $200 for Julian's art supplies. $300 for a specialist my father needed to see. The numbers blurred together, a testament to my own stupidity. I remembered the day of my college graduation. I had stood there in my cap and gown, scanning the crowd for their faces. They never showed up. Julian had called me that morning, his voice thick with sleep, to tell me he had the flu, and Mom and Dad had to stay home to take care of him. I had believed them. I had taken the bus home alone, clutching my diploma, telling myself it was okay. That family came first. Now, looking at this notebook, I saw the entry from that very week. $800 transferred to Mom for emergency car repairs. They hadn't stayed home to care for Julian. They had taken my money and gone somewhere else. Maybe a casino, maybe a nice dinner. Anywhere but with me. It is a chain, really. a survivor's chain. You get so used to being the one who fixes things, the one who saves the day, that you forget you are in a prison without bars built of guilt and obligation. You think that if you just work harder, pay more, be better, the cell door will open. But it never does, because the people holding the key are the ones benefiting from your imprisonment. They need you to stay locked up. They need you to believe that you are the problem, that you are the one who isn't doing enough. That notebook wasn't just a record of money lost. It was a record of my own complicity in my exploitation. I tallied the final total. $85,000. $85,000 stolen from my future to fund their lies. That number stared back at me, black ink on white paper. It was the price of my naivety, the cost of wanting to be loved. But looking at it now, I didn't feel shame. I felt anger, a pure, righteous anger that burned away the last remnants of my hesitation. They had taken everything I had to give, and they had laughed while doing it. Well, the Bank of Megan was officially closed, and I was about to call in the loans. The next morning, the silence broke. My phone, which I had turned back on, exploded with notifications. They had realized the money was gone, but there were no apologies, no frantic calls explaining the misunderstanding. Instead, there was a smear campaign. My mother had posted a long, rambling status on Facebook, tagging every relative we had. "My own daughter," she wrote, "has abandoned her sick father in his time of need. After everything we did for her, she cuts us off because she is jealous of her brother's success. Please pray for us." Below it, Julian had commented, "Don't worry, Mom. Karma is real. She will get what is coming to her." He then sent me a direct text, "You made Mom cry. You fix this, or I am coming to your office. Do you want your boss to know what kind of person you really are?" The old Megan would have panicked. She would have called them begging for forgiveness, transferring double the amount just to make the noise stop. But the old Megan was gone. I looked at the threats, the lies, the manipulation, and I felt nothing but disgust. It is the illusion of power. Bullies always seem strongest right before they crumble. They rely on your fear. They need you to believe that they hold all the cards. But the moment you stop playing their game, you realize they are holding nothing but air. Their power exists only because you grant it to them, and I was done granting it. I didn't reply to the texts. I didn't comment on the Facebook post. Instead, I put on my best suit. I drove to the office of Mr. Vance, a lawyer I had done some design work for a few years back. He was a sharp, no-nonsense man who owed me a favor. I laid everything out on his desk. The notebook, the bank statements, the text messages, and one more thing, a handwritten I owe you. From Julian for $20,000 dating back 4 years when he swore he was going to open a recording studio. He thought I had lost it. I hadn't. "I want it back," I told Mr. Vance. "All of it. The loan. The money they defrauded me of. And I want a cease and desist for the harassment." Mr. Vance looked at the documents, then at me. "This is going to get ugly, Megan. Are you sure?" "I have never been more sure of anything in my life," I said. "Draft the demand letter. Give them 30 days to pay the $20,000. If they don't, we sue." Leaving his office, I felt lighter than I had in years. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I was a plaintiff. I was taking the war from the kitchen table to the courtroom. They wanted to play dirty, fine. I was done playing nice. I was playing to win. 2 days later, Mr. Vance called me. His voice was grim. "Megan, can you come in? Now. There is something you need to see." I rushed over, my stomach knotting. Had they countersued? Had they found some way to blame me? When I walked into his office, Mr. Vance was staring at a credit report on his screen. He turned it towards me. "I ran a standard credit check to prepare for the lawsuit," he said, "and I found this." He pointed to 3 credit cards. 3 cards with limits maxed out, totaling nearly $40,000. Cards I had never applied for. Cards I had never seen. "Look at the billing address," he said. I looked. It was my parents' house. And look at the signature on the applications. It was a scrawl that looked vaguely like mine, but not quite. It was shaky, hesitant. It was a forgery. "They didn't just borrow money from you, Megan," Mr. Vance said quietly. "They stole your identity. This isn't a civil dispute anymore. This is a felony. Identity theft, credit card fraud. If we report this, they could go to prison." The room seemed to tilt. Prison. My parents. My brother. I thought about the car, the champagne, the laughter. They hadn't just used my money. They had used my name. They had ruined my credit, my financial future, without a second thought. They had looked at me and seen nothing but a resource to be mined until it was empty. "Report it," I said. The words tasted like ash, but they were steady. File the police report. Mr. Vance nodded. Once we do this, there is no going back. Good, I said. I don't want to go back. I left his office with a thick manila envelope in my hand. Inside was the police report, the evidence of fraud, and the demand letter. It was a bomb, and I was the delivery system. I knew where they would be tonight. Julian was throwing a launch party for his new car at my parents' house. All their friends would be there, all the people they had lied to about me. I drove to their house as the sun began to set. The driveway was full of cars. Music thumped from the backyard. I could hear laughter. I walked up the path, the envelope heavy in my hand. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't sad. I was the consequence of their actions arriving at their doorstep. I pushed open the gate and stepped into the party. The music died. Heads turned. My mother, holding a glass of wine, froze. Julian, leaning against his new car, went pale. My father looked like he was about to have that heart attack he always threatened. "What are you doing here?" my mother hissed, rushing towards me. "Get out! You have embarrassed us enough." "No," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. "I am just here to deliver a gift." I tossed the envelope onto the table next to the cake. It landed with a heavy thud. "That," I said, pointing to the envelope, "is a police report for identity theft and credit card fraud. You opened 3 cards in my name. You forged my signature. You maxed them out." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother's face turned a shade of gray I had never seen before. "You have 24 hours, I continued, looking directly at Julian. "Sell the car, pay off the debt, every single cent. If you do, I might drop the charges. If you don't," I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "If you don't, the police will be here tomorrow morning to arrest all 3 of you." "Megan, please," my father stammered, stepping forward. "We are family." "Family doesn't steal from family," I said coldly. "Family doesn't lie. You have 24 hours. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to see them crumbling. I knew what self-destruction looked like. I had watched them do it to me for years. Now they were doing it to themselves. And as I walked back to my car, the only sound I heard was the beautiful, deafening silence of my own freedom. They sold the car. They had to. The shame of the public confrontation, combined with the very real threat of prison, broke them. Julian ended up working double shifts at a warehouse to pay back the rest. My parents became pariahs in their social circle. The truth has a way of isolating people who live on lies. I didn't celebrate their downfall. I just moved on. I used the money I saved from not supporting them to open my own design studio. It is small, but it is mine. It has big windows and plenty of light. I bought a coffee maker that uses real beans. I started eating fresh food. I started living. It is Friday morning, 8 a.m. My phone alarm chirps. It is the old reminder. Transfer money. I look at it for a second, a ghost from a past life. Then with a smile, I swipe it away and hit delete. I take a sip of my coffee. It is hot. It is strong. And it tastes like peace. To everyone out there listening, to every person who feels like an outsider in their own family, I wrote this for you. You are not a resource. You are not an ATM. You are not a backup plan. You are a person worthy of love that doesn't cost a dime. Cutting ties isn't selfish. It is an act of survival. It is the bravest thing you will ever do. Don't wait for them to change. They won't. Change your own life. Walk away. And don't ever look back. If you are waiting for an apology from people who will never admit they are wrong, stop. Save yourself. Share this video if you are ready to choose you. And tell me in the comments, what is your final line in the sand?